TrueAnon started off as a podcast about Epstein, and I know you have to go soon. You've been very generous with your time, and we ran over because of that very interesting debate that we had with those doctors. But
I saw
it was spicy. What can you tell us about the relationship between Israel and Epstein?
Jeffrey Epstein? It's an interesting one. Epstein at one point thought about fleeing to Israel on the eve of, I believe, his 2000s arrest, like the first one when it happened in Florida. He seems to have been tied up with this group of both Israeli and Gulf businessmen. I mean, we can't forget, I believe he had a Saudi Arabian, I believe an Austrian passport with a Saudi Arabian address listed in it in his safe. And Saudi Arabia and Israel have been boys for quite a while. He's somebody who was very close to former Prime Minister Ehud Barak. A lot of people talk about like Epstein's like very close confidants, right? Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, but if anything, Ehud Barak, excuse me,
Alan Dershowitz,
of course,
the Dersh, yeah.
If anything, Ehud Barak was actually closer to Epstein, it seems, than Clinton. Barak stayed at his house. He visited, he says, dozens of times that he admits, and there's footage, pictures taken, I believe, by the Daily Mail of Barak in a disguise, visiting and flanked by some kind of security guard, entering Epstein's Upper East Side townhouse or mansion. Not a townhouse, it's a fucking mansion. And then a number of very young, although appear to be over 18, but still very young, very pretty girls entering a short while later. It's sort of extraordinary that like that hasn't been that much of an issue. This is somebody who was the prime minister of Israel. And, we go back to also Epstein's partner in crime, Ghislaine Maxwell. Her father, Robert Maxwell, was rumored to have been, and there's pretty strong evidence for this, somebody who worked for, at least in some capacity, Mossad. Now, he also might have been killed by Mossad.
Yeah.
So that is one of the major theories out there. And in fact, a former Mossad agent, I have this book, wrote a thinly veiled fictional book, although he says it has to be fiction for legal purposes,
right,
about the killing of Robert Maxwell. But Ghislaine Maxwell's father was somebody who was essentially a gangster, and was like helped kidnap. I shouldn't say help kidnap, but helped in the process of kidnapping, if that is a little more fine a point. Of Mordecai Vanunu, who was the Israeli nuclear bomb whistleblower.
Right.
It's this stuff. I think there's a lot of sensationalist stuff with the Epstein case, and so I always try to look at stuff that we know to be true.
Sure.
And we know this stuff to be true. Like you could see the photograph right there. Barak has gone on record saying this stuff, and Jeffrey Epstein actually set up a debate between, he told me this, Noam Chomsky told me this, that Epstein set up a debate between Noam Chomsky and Ehud Barak at one point. I mean, he was somebody who could get people to do what he wanted. I don't know if that's been, I think I maybe posted that on Twitter or something, but Chomsky told me that himself in an email.
Wow.
It's kind of, it gets lost in a lot of this stuff. And I think there's a very simplistic, like Epstein was working for Israel. We don't know that. Like that's one of those things that like people say, and that's maybe an easy way to put it for some people. We genuinely don't know that. And I've no idea, but it does seem like that he was very close with members of the Israeli state. It seems like a lot of people in his general circle were, especially Ghislaine Maxwell. Although, funnily enough, I've proven it. Ghislaine Maxwell was actually raised Protestant, not Jewish, which is fucking rare victory for us.
Wow. Yeah. You hear that? All you anti-Semites out there?
Exactly.
It's not one of ours.
But yeah,
but all these Israeli dignitaries attended his funeral, for instance.
Robert Maxwell. Yeah. He was
buried in Israel.
Yeah. With like, a lot of honors and shit like that.
Yeah.
He was, and he was, Israel is during the 1948 war supplied with all these Czech weapons. We're told that Robert Maxwell helped that. I don't really see necessarily how he could have. I don't think he was that established at that point. But he was a member of, again, so he says, although it does seem to also be true, he was a member this is Robert Maxwell, not Epstein.
Yeah. Sorry, I brought it
A
back to
British essentially like agent during the war. It's these things are murky, right? Like, there's a lot of, for instance, Eastern European organized crime in Israel. Some of it by Jewish guys, some of it just by Eastern European guys. Robert Maxwell seems totally tied up in that stuff in the 1980s. And that would also, that business is fucking big in Israel. So, that's not even getting to someone like Alan Dershowitz, right? Dershowitz he's a fucking joke now, I think. I mean, the only people that really take him seriously are like Netanyahu and a couple other guys like that. He's somebody who is very close with Epstein. There has been some weird stuff going on with the accusations towards Alan Dershowitz. Virginia Jeffrey recanted publicly her accusations against Dershowitz. Who knows what went on behind the scenes with that stuff? I can't claim to. I thought it was, the whole way that played out was very strange. But regardless of whether Alan Dershowitz himself is guilty of any crimes involving other people, he certainly was aware of what Epstein was doing, even when Epstein was not, even when he wasn't acting in his capacity as Epstein's lawyer. And I think there's a lot of tough questions that Alan Dershowitz has sort of insulated himself from being asked because of all of his other associations, right? Like, is people hate him so much for his Trump stuff that the Epstein stuff doesn't really come up that much.
Yeah.
But I mean, thankfully,
and Lawrence Summers of Harvard, another Epstein friend.
Exactly. Larry Summers is a classic piece of shit. But yeah, Epstein friend. I wouldn't be surprised if he was brought into that fold. I believe probably by someone like Dershowitz, or one of the other high profile academics that, I don't know if academics is the right word to describe Dershowitz, but high profile freaks that Epstein surrounded himself with. It's all these guys. It's crazy.